Hi, this is Alex Damon, and welcome to the Kamehameha tutorial 2.0 in HD. Forget that 240p piece of garbage I made 6 years ago. This is the tutorial you're looking for. I don't want to waste much of your time, but before I dive in, I want to make sure everyone knows that I use the plugins Trapcode Particular and Trapcode Shine. I will mention other effects that you can use as substitutions, but I won't be going into detail about them. Finally, since this tutorial is on the long side, I've included a table of contents here and in the description. That said, let's dive in. This is what we're aiming for. We're going to achieve this with 4 solids, 1 adjustment layer, and a whole lot of effects. Starting from scratch, we will make the source of the beam, then some little extra bits to make it look a little more alive and organic, then the beam itself, and finally some, I'm not sure what to call this layer except a kind of energy that flows from the source point throughout the entire blast. To start, create a new composition. I'm using the HD TV 1080 29.97 preset. I'm making mine 5 seconds, but this can be as long or as short as you wish. And name it Main. Create a new black solid and call it Source, as this will be the source of the beam. Set its transfer mode to Add. If you don't see the transfer mode drop down, hit F4 on your keyboard to toggle between the switches and modes. With your solid selected, apply Trapcode Particular by going to Effect, Trapcode, Particular. If you don't have this plugin, you can go to Effect, Simulation, Particle Playground, or CC Particle World. Go to the start of your composition. Open up the emitter property and enter 25,000 under particles per second. We are now creating a ball of particles. Go down to 4 seconds in your composition, or wherever you would like your blast to dissipate. Set a keyframe for your current value. Hit page down to go forward 1 frame, and set a keyframe for 0 particles per second. Now your emitter will generate 25,000 particles per second for 4 seconds, and then stop. Change the emitter type to a sphere, because we want to be able to adjust the size of the emitter, and you can't do that with a point. Pull the emitter position over to the left side of your screen. I don't want our particles to have any velocity, so zero out velocity, velocity random, velocity distribution, and velocity from motion. We want to spread our emitter out a bit, so input 215, 500, and 230 for emitter size X, Y, and Z respectively. I know it doesn't look like much yet, but hang in there. Open up the particle drop-down. We don't want the particles to live so long, so turn the life down to 0.5 seconds. We also don't want everything to be perfectly uniform, so turn up the life random to 20%. Open up the opacity over life and choose the second preset. The particles will generate and immediately begin to fade away. We are done with the particle property. Open up the physics drop-down, and inside that open up air. We are going to use Wind X to push our particles. Crank Wind X up to 990. That's it for particular for now. I want my blast to be a little taller, but I like the amount of particles we have out there, so hit S on your keyboard to open up the layer's scale property. Unlink the proportions and type 145 into the Y dimension. Our final step on this layer is to add a radial blur, so go to Effect, Blur and Sharpen, Radial Blur. Set the type to zoom. Drag the center or input the value manually to 5 in the X dimension, right behind your blast. Turn the amount up to 120. I'm actually going to open up my particular effect again, and I just want to pull my source point over to the left a little farther. I just want to be able to see more of the blast and the beam in the future. So now we are done with the source layer. A RAM preview will show you that this doesn't exactly look like a Kamehameha, but we're going to make it look a little more familiar now. Create a new adjustment layer by going to Layer, New, Adjustment Layer. Let's call this layer Shine. Apply Trapcode Shine by going to Effect, Trapcode Shine. If you don't have this plugin, you can use Effect, Stylize, Glow. This effect will not allow you to achieve the same look as this tutorial, but it might get you close. Drag or type the source point to be 130 in the X dimension. Change the ray length to 2.0. Boost light to 6. What I like about Shine is that it gives you a lot of control over the color of your light. So hit the Colorize drop-down and choose the Electric preset. Or make your own unique colors with either 3-color or 5-color gradients. I just happen to think Electric matches the Kamehameha the best. Now we're going to round out our blast a bit. With your Shine adjustment layer still selected, go to Effect, Distort, Spherize. Turn the radius up to 455. Now you're going to have to kind of guess and check here, but drag the center of the sphere to the left until it looks good to you. I like 520 for this. I just like the rounded look Spherize gives the blast. The last effect we're going to add to our adjustment layer is CC Vector Blur. Go to Effect, Blur and Sharpen, CC Vector Blur. Messing around with this effect can give you a more fiery and organic look. Change the type to Direction Fading. Turn the amount up to 15. Change the revolutions to 2. We're now done with our Shine layer. A RAM preview will show us that we've got something that looks like the base of a fireball or energy blast, but it looks very symmetrical, so let's fix that. Duplicate your source layer and rename it to Flames. Let's solo this layer so we can see what we're doing a little better. First, delete the radial blur. Our original particular layer gives us a good base for what we're about to do. We just have to tweak a few settings. So open up the emitter drop-down. Go to your first keyframe and change it from 25,000 to 50. Drag those two keyframes backward on your timeline 10 frames. Increase the position X to 230. Reduce emitter size X to 155 and emitter size Y to 320. Z can stay as it is. Open up the particle drop-down. Increase the life to 0.8 seconds. Nothing else changes here. Now things get interesting. Open up the auxiliary system drop-down. The auxiliary system turns every particle into a separate emitter. Set emit to continuously. Change color from main to 100%. We basically want to create a solid line of particles here, so increase particles per second until you see that. 210 should be good enough. We also don't want these particles to reach so far across the screen, so open up Control from Main Particles and change Stop Emit to 80. Now let's unsolo this layer and see how it's all working together. Another RAM preview, and we have what looks like a blue flame with these random flickers coming off of it. Our next step is to create the beam itself. Duplicate your flame solid. Drag it above the adjustment layer, reset particular, and rename the layer Beam. Also, make sure to delete all the keyframes. Let's solo the layer so we can see what we're dealing with. Go to the second frame of your composition. Open the emitter drop-down and set a keyframe for 0 particles per second. I'm doing this because I want the beam to appear after the source. Go ahead to the next frame and set a keyframe for 950 particles per second. Go to 4 seconds in your composition, or wherever you set keyframes to turn off emissions on the source layer. Then go back 3 frames. I'm using page up to do that. Set a keyframe for 950, move forward 1 frame, and set a keyframe for 0. Change the emitter type to a sphere. Set the position X to 230. Set the direction to directional. Reduce the direction spread to 0. Increase the emitter size to 100 for all axes. Open up the particle drop-down. Increase the particle size to 20. Open up Physics and Air and increase the Wind X to 2000. We are now done with Trapcode Particular. Next, go to Effect, Trapcode, Shine to add shine to our beam. Set the source point to 155 in the X dimension. Go to the beginning of the composition. Set the ray length to 1 and set a keyframe. Go forward to about when your beam exits the screen, which is right at 1 second for me. Increase the ray length to 3. Hit U to see the keyframes you're creating for Shine. Select the first one, right-click it, and set it to an Easy Ease keyframe. Set Boost Light to 1. Change your color to electric or whatever color you made your source. Now we're done with shine. Go to Effect, Blur and Sharpen, CC Vector Blur. Set the type to Direction Fading. Set the amount to 15. Set the revolutions to 3. If you zoom into the edge here, you can see that the vector blur is messing with our beam a bit. To fix that, just scale the beam up a bit until you can't. Let's do a RAM preview. We now have the basics completed. There's one more piece to this puzzle to complete the main part of the blast. Select all of your layers and go to Layer, Pre-Compose. Name it Blast. Create a new black solid. Name it Fractal. Go to Effect, Noise and Grain, Fractal Noise. Go to the beginning of the composition. Open up the Transform dropdown. Set keyframes for offset turbulence and evolution. Go to the end of the composition. Set offset turbulence to 5,000 in the x dimension and evolution to 5 revolutions. Now go to Effect, Color Correction, Tritone. Choose a light blue for the midtones and a darker blue for the shadows. Go to Effect, Blur and Sharpen, Directional Blur. Set the direction to 90 degrees. Set the blur length to 110. Set the transfer mode of your fractal layer to Linear Light. Duplicate your blast composition and move the duplication on top of the fractal layer. Set the fractal layer's track matte to Alpha Matte Blast. Select the blast layer you are using as your track matte. Go to Effect, Color Correction, Levels. Select the alpha channel. We don't want to see so much of the fractal layer, so we're going to shrink the alpha channel. So in input black, put 150, and for gamma, put 0.3. While we're at it, I want to do the same thing to our original blast comp. So apply levels, go to the alpha channel, and just bring everything into the middle a bit. The final step is to add Spherize to the fractal. The easiest way to do this is to go into your blast comp, go to your shine adjustment layer, copy the Spherize effect, and paste it onto the fractal layer. Everything should be set up the same way. The fractal gives the blast a feeling like there's this energy flowing through the entire wave, and the Spherize effect gives it a round 3D look. I had originally planned on covering how you would go about incorporating this into footage, but creating the Kamehameha by itself turned into a fairly long video. So I'm going to create a part 2 all about adding the blast to footage. I'm going to try to go over expressions to make controlling the blast a little bit easier, how to charge up an energy ball, and some color correction to get a good Dragon Ball Z look. So make sure you subscribe to my channel so you can be notified when that comes out. I will also update this video with an annotation to link you straight to it here. And while you wait for part 2, I have a weekly series of After Effects tutorials you can check out. Please leave me a comment if you have any questions about this tutorial, and leave me some video responses of your work. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in part 2.